the mic or anything there. Thanks.
I'm assuming it was so. You're up here, Davis. You're sitting next to the big cheese.
Eats himself.
It's good to see you.
All right, everyone, we're gonna get rolling here. It's 7:32. I'll start with attendance. Cam Paul.
Here.
Bob Hutchison. Here. Absent Thomas Moses.
Here.
Andy Palmer.
Here.
Dave Mikulski.
Here.
Bob Reynolds is absent and Wentz Wellington is absent. We have a quorum. I'll start with the pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Motion to open the May 18th, 2022 Hamburg, New York IDA Board of Directors meeting at 7:33 a.m.
So move.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Andy. First, I'd like to request a moment of silence in honor of the innocent people that lost their lives in the tragic shooting in our city of Buffalo this past weekend. Thank you, everyone. Later in the meeting, we had an add to the agenda, and it is diversity and inclusion policy. And it's unfortunate that the events of this past weekend, have led us to this. And this is an emotion I think that we've always held as an agency, but I think we need to adopt a policy to reflect and memorialize our opinions and our stance on diversity and inclusion of all individuals within, not only our agency, but the town of Hamburg and our whole community, our country as well. Okay, first item on the agenda is a motion to approve the meeting minutes from April 20th, 2022. So, thank you, Davis. Thank you, Bob. Does anyone have any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Here, thank you. Treasurer report, I'll talk to it best that I can in Mr. Reynolds' absence. Here. In April 2022, we had income due to interest. Mary, is this interest reported on the certificate of deposit at this point?
No.
No, this is not. So this is ordinary interest and also administrative fees from the project closing of Billy Lee LLC. So we have had expenses of $7,550.76. We've had expenses. Hi, Janet. Janet Barr joined the meeting. We've had expenses largely in the amount of payroll, but total expenses in the amount of $15,816.49, and net income of a negative $8,265.73. Our total equity, cash on hand, including the certificate of deposit, checking and savings, is $1,018,247.61. Motion to approve.
So move.
Thank you, Cam.
Second.
Thank you, Tom. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. I'll go over my update briefly. As mentioned in the financial report, E1 is closed. Key Energy, we have been in communication, more so Jennifer, our agency attorney, with their representation. The draft documents have been provided by the IDA through Jennifer. And we're just waiting on comments at this point.
Correct, and those documents have been out for a couple of weeks. When I reached out to their attorney earlier this week, she did not respond.
Okay, thank you. And we're still working with, which has had less progress, but Johnson Brew House, KH Industries, Soft Precision Machine, which are kind of two projects into one. and the 290 Lake Street project, which was recently just reintroduced. The other financial item we'll visit later is an insurance update. Project activity maintains as last talked to. I did talk a little bit in advance of the meeting. Some of the bond projects are reemerging, some of that financing potentially due to the hike in interest rates, and also developments from some of the not-for-profit organizations that are interested in investing in the Hamburg. So I do have a call later today on one of those projects. The CARES grant program that we are supporting through the Hamburg Development Corporation has approved 3 grants to date. Those grants total in the amount of $132,000. We're still actively working. We have $168,000 or $268,000 remaining to deploy through CARES grant funds. And since our April meeting, we've had 2 new applicants. So I've had several meetings, 2 particularly with the chamber, where we're out and talking about that project and looking to deploy that money. Again, those have a job creation requirement for the large part, and it is 1 new FTE for every 50,000, or I'm sorry, every $25,000 lent. So there are, so along with these incentives, there's a employment commitment as well. Some meetings of note. We've met with both the Hamburg Town Board and the Hamburg Village Board to provide updates on Pitch Hamburg. We've gone through and with the village planning process, we've received a change of use approval. We've executed a lease. We've hired an executive director for this incubator program. So it is, it's very exciting. We've had a tremendous amount of progress in the last probably 2 months. This has taken a lot of my time, but I feel it's an important component. It's helped to establish more links in the business community for the Industrial Development Agency. Ideally, these businesses that are incubated will at some point be applicants to the Hamburg IDA. It's involved a lot of administration. So thank you to Mary. She's helped with, this is a completely new organization. Payroll, insurance, liability insurance as a tenant, benefits, so employment contracts. So we've had a lot involved with this process, and we look forward to probably June, maybe early July for doing a grand opening type event and really rolling out the program. And you will certainly all be invited. We are working with specifically 2 companies right now. One is interested in space. It is a company that runs an app. It's called Favor Drop, and it's a lot of its customers are Village of Hamburg businesses. So this is all right along the lines of being additive to the Village of Hamburg and the Town of Hamburg business community, where supporting this business offers a lot of support to the local businesses in our community. So everything's been a lot of work, but everything's really coming along, which is exciting.
Can you announce who the director is?
Yeah, the director is Anna Masucci. She was employed at Roswell. She also works with the village currently, and she'll maintain that role as a consultant in special projects. She has she operates a startup herself. She has some extensive nonprofit experience, and yeah, I feel like she's an awesome fit. We did expand our board as we organized the not-for-profit. Was a board of 4 people. Now we have more financial resources. We have money in the bank, so we've expanded the board. For accountability purposes, for fundraising purposes, program development. We have 10 members on our board at this point. So as we review and update our website with this new director, I will point you to that to meet some of these people. Very impressive roster of people from the Hamburg community And, it's a great group to be working with. So it's very exciting.
Sounds exciting.
Janet, the next board meeting for the trustees in Blaisdell is June 15th. Does that get flexed early because of the concert?
It does get flexed early. It's at
Okay.
4:30.
Oh, it is at, okay, so I have it on my calendar. Because actually, Mayor Hefner have referred someone that we are working with, so I wanted to just provide an update to the trustees in Blaisdell as well, so I'll be attending it. Let's see, we're starting a steering committee for economic development in the stadium area. So I've met with Supervisor Hope on that. We've potentially combining a joint committee with the town of Orchard Park. I would say Hamburg, I think, has more ambition for more business compatible zoning. I think in large part Orchard Park is more interested in keeping it R zone, residentially zoned. So there may be more opportunities for business expansion in Hamburg to somewhat benefit off of the stadium investments. In addition, we had a meeting yesterday evening with representatives from the Cohan Group as well. So they're the new owners of the McKinley Mall. So the supervisor, a town board member, the planning consultant, and I and the town attorney had met at this point as an introduction with the Cohan Group to talk about investments in the mall and our vision and their vision for the mall in the future. So I think that was very positive, and they have an appetite that they had spoke to for investment in the mall and to essentially readapt it for largely its present use, but to today's standards, to upgrade it to the retail level that people are looking for today. So it sounds like facade improvements, retrofitting to accommodate a smaller footprint that the retailers are looking for, and then also a entertainment type component. So potentially something along the lines of a tenant like a Dave and Buster's or a trampoline park. Some of the mixed uses that you'll see at some of the other malls in the area that complement the food courts and the retail as well. So that was exciting.
Just back up the stadium area. There was an article recently about Green Bay and they have a way economic development around the stadium with housing and other types of businesses that you wouldn't necessarily associate with the stadium. So that is a doable venture.
Yeah, I think, and I would say, from my impression that the town is open to that. I think a lot needs to be introduced, and it will be introduced in terms of like the plot plan, basically which will identify where the stadium will sit and how the traffic flow will work and what will be ancillary uses of the stadium. They've hinted to that, but how many times a year will this stadium be used? Will it be designed to host other sports, other leagues? There was talk to soccer. I don't know if that was specifically the case, or how many other concerts or other events will be introduced, how the parking will be laid out, and then understanding what goes on with the Erie Community College, and will they maintain, or will they be looking to sell some land, or will they be required to give some land back to the state of New York for this project as well?
Well, the county owns all that property at Erie Community College, and that's that's a huge footprint that they have over there.
Yeah, I would anticipate there's going to be land there.
So, we had been approached years ago by a hotel, if you remember, that wanted to build and wanted IDA incentives to build right at Brompton and Southwestern. Where you cut up to go to
I was
Sheldon.
involved with that, yeah.
Brompton goes between McKinley and Southwestern, but there's a lot of that property right on Southwestern, right up to the Orchard Park line that's already zoned commercial. Or at least local shopping,
Mhm.
you know.
Well, the concept that they had was to make the stadium areas in those two municipalities a destination outside the stadium itself. And it's been successful, so.
I mean, if you've been up to New England, there's literally a mall outside of the stadium. There's,
Does
I
it
mean,
does it get good traffic? on
well, they have a
Friday?
Bass Pro Shop there. They have, yeah.
That's where it went.
No, they literally like, so Gillette's here over on like that end of the stadium parking lot is a Bass Pro Shop. And then there's like, and it's, I shouldn't call it a mall. It's more of a plaza because you enter the shops from the outside. But like if you go to CBS Sports Zone, which is down, like on the far end of the stadium, not the bridge end, the other end, like you can go up on the roof and literally look into the stadium. I mean, it's super cool and they get a lot of action. Because people want to go see the stadium, they want to see what's there.
Sure.
The difference with New England versus us, New England, there's two ways in. By train or by vehicle, and it's one route. It isn't like you have the 219 and you have Route 5 and you have like one way in, one way out. It's and they still get a lot of action. So, I mean,
Good.
we have.
Yeah, I mean,
But I think if there's more action at the stadium, you'll get more ancillary use.
yes,
But they, you know, that whatever deal they enter into, they've really gotta open up the stadium more than 10 times a year.
agreed. Yeah, and I would say likely the supervisor only knows as much as we read in the paper. I don't think there's a lot of information out there, so I think the investments are, potential, but
Yeah.
you're right, it's based on the ancillary use. The good news is that, I think Hamburg is open-minded, generally to an entertainment type destination in that area. So to adopt a zoning that would be compatible with entertainment destination type use. So things are looking positive, but there's still, a lot of questions out there. But there was talk of involving, on this committee, Empire State Development, Erie County Department of Environmental Planning, certainly myself, the supervisor, likely somebody from planning. So at this point, it was just, kind of a brainstorming in terms of who would sit on this group, and then potentially a kickoff meeting from there.
Where I'd have concern is the state's gonna own it, and how are they gonna control things? There's gonna be a key right there. Because, for example, if they don't let the municipalities take a more active part, and they're gonna control it, who would have no say in a lot of it.
Mhm.
That's what my big concern would be, because that's what happens down at the lake, for example. They own right out into the lake, and we may not have any say on those turbines that are out there. So I mean, those are things that I get concerned with, because it's all gonna change. And when you're asking for subsidy for this and subsidy for that, like they used to do, they wanted it anyway in Orchard Park, is that gonna be an okay for the state, or is the state gonna say, no, we're gonna take it over? Those are questions that have not been answered in the contracts or anything else that we as taxpayers haven't seen any of that. So I mean, those are concerns I would have.
Yeah, I know there, like a lot of the security expenses are just absorbed by the local municipalities.
Exactly.
Well, and it's a really weird, literally like the town lines
Yes.
where they go through. So basically, if you're looking at ECC, the town line is at the, well, bisects their football stadium. ECC's football stadium.
So if we get 51 yards, it'll be in Hamburg yards.
Yeah, well, you know, so it's, I mean, there's a lot of potential, but there's so many unknowns.
Mhm.
And I think our hands are tied, but the town needs to think about, do they want to put moratoriums on building in certain areas until they see a plan? Like, and I'm not picking on Dollar Generals at all, God bless them. I really don't give a care, but like where they just put that Dollar General on Southwestern would have been prime real estate with the new stadium.
Yes.
Oh, that doesn't mean it can't be developed for the right.
For the right amount of money, for the right amount of money, they'll pull out anyways, but you know what I mean,
Yeah, and that, you know, and that's my vision as you go down south or southwestern, not South Park. You know, just to see a higher level of investment than, you know, a storage shed sales.
they're in Orchard Park.
Okay, parking lots, you know, so there's, you know, you think there's more opportunity than what has been laid out. So,
You know, we kind of think of Abbott Road as a dividing line, but it really isn't. Once you get to Olympic, the line cuts in. Sheldon Road, half of it's in Hamburg, half of it's in Orchard Park. So it's really a funky jog there.
It's like our fire districts, same thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's seriously, the village of Blaisdell, there's a town parcel between South Park, well, you have the building at South Park and Lake, and then the empty lot where Chaz used to be. That little house that is halfway developed is in the town of Hamburg. Then you hop back into Blaisdell, and then the post office is in Blaisdell, but across the street is Hamburg. I mean, it's really chippy choppy.
all right, the last item I had to report was we did have through the Hamburg Development Loan Fund, we had a loan default due to a business closing. But fortunately, we did have some legal expense. We had to send some demand notice out to the operator, and we received full payment for the loan, so the organization was made whole. But unfortunately, the business went out largely due to COVID and supply chain issues. Okay, continuing on. I'd like to introduce this to the agenda. This is the Hamburg Industrial Development Agency Diversity and Inclusion Policy. Whereas the board of the Hamburg Industrial Development Agency condemns all forms of racism and discrimination and the subsequent violence that it causes. We mourn the innocent lives lost and stand united in support of those whose lives were forever changed by the cowardly and senseless act of violence that took place on May 14, 2022. And whereas our human capital is the most valuable asset we have, the collective sum of the individual differences, life experiences, knowledge, inventiveness, innovation, self-expression, unique capabilities, and talent that our employees and members invest in their work represents a significant part of not only our culture, but our reputation and our company's achievement as well. We embrace and encourage our employees and members' differences in age, color, disability, ethnicity, family or marital status, gender identity or expression, language, national origin, physical and mental ability, political affiliation, race, religion, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, veteran status, and other characteristics that make our employees and membership unique and balanced. Now therefore be it resolved that we pledge in action and voice to make the town of Hamburg a place where all are welcome and respected. Any employee or member found to have exhibited any inappropriate conduct or behavior against others may be subject to disciplinary action. Employees and members who believe they have been subjected to any kind of discrimination that conflicts with this diversity policy and initiatives should seek assistance from a supervisor or an HR representative. Adopted May 18, 2022. So moved.
So moved.
Thank you, Kim.
Second.
Thank you, Bob Hutchison. All in favor?
On the question,
Yes, sir.
any employee or member found to exhibit inappropriate conduct behavior against others may be subject to disciplinary actions. What are those steps? What is inappropriate conduct and what is inappropriate behavior?
We have not defined that.
I think we probably should define that before we approve policy,
Okay.
personally.
I don't know if we can, then I would recommend to table this.
Well, just on Andy's question, I mean, that's kind of an open-ended. If you define what is inappropriate. I had questions too. We don't have an HR representative.
Mhm.
So
Was this in the packet or is this fairly new?
No,
after
this
meeting?
came out yesterday.
Okay, and forgive me, I didn't see
Yeah,
it, or
it's
I would
okay.
have supposed to
Yeah.
ask questions beforehand, you know what I mean?
and would a supervisor be Bob Hutchinson
Mhm.
or would it be you? Would it, you are the person who makes the inappropriate, you know, I think maybe this is a boilerplate. No, this is a lovely boilerplate.
Absolutely.
It is.
Um,
But I think you need to, as Janet suggested, have two people to report to, just because we
Okay.
have one
or
person.
positions instead of people.
Right.
Because
Right,
people can change.
Right.
Positions will remain the same.
right. And to answer Andy's question, I don't know that you can define it. Usually something like this is evaluated on a case-by-case basis.
Well, then that process should probably be defined. I don't know what, we've had a lot of policies, so is there another policy that this can refer to that's already existing, like for any inappropriate behavior?
Usually with inappropriate behavior, it's just like documenting to terminate someone, you know, there's counsel, depending on the severity of the incident.
Of course,
You
yeah.
would
we've
counsel
all
the
been
person,
through that
document,
training.
you know, and escalating discipline.
But I guess, is there an existing document in our board policies for that?
No, there is largely, we could look to, mirror like a general progressive disciplinary policy
Or
You
a
know, which would
harassment
be-
policy.
would be typical. And I don't know if state law,
Harassment.
yeah, like, mirror the harassment
Right.
policy.
Look, my heart goes out to those people, and
Yeah.
I am not trying to say anything other than I think we have something, which is good.
When it's too
It-
arbitrary.
It's just, in my opinion.
Okay. Then I would, move, recommend the board move to table this, and then we'll revisit it at a future meeting, as it's redrafted.
What do we have to, I'm thinking, in a case like this, I mean, this is a board, and it really reflects on the board itself, not just the two of us, the employees of the organization. I mean, I think we're looking at it as a board. We're not gonna, I don't know if we're gonna discipline, have a progressive discipline policy for board members.
And,
Very specific.
and our board has no ability to dismiss anyone
Right.
other than to folks and potentially our legal counsel. We don't have the ability. The town board are the folks who,
Or the village, right?
well, I mean, the
the
village is the
Yeah.
school districts,
Right.
but still, so the village has Andy Palmer.
Yeah.
You've been approved by the town board. If the village summons somebody new and says, we don't want Andy Palmer anymore, we're gonna put Joe Smith on. The town board still gotta approve Joe Smith. Andy's still here until the town board approves Joe Smith. So,
I think it's right and good to have
so
some kind of
I mean, we
vehicle
really
in
have
place
to,
to deal with this stuff, but what
Yeah.
is that vehicle?
It would have to be a recommendation back to the town board to
Yeah,
remove that.
yeah.
person. And again, depending on the severity of the incident, let's say. I think this resolution is more to say that as a board, we're not gonna discriminate. We're gonna follow a very open policy here in our decision-making process.
I don't think it should be the place of this policy to define our disciplinary process. I think the point of this policy is to say actions against, diversity and inclusion may be subject to discipline, which is defined elsewhere.
with just a suggestion, this is a really great statement and fairly clear. until the last two paragraphs. And if you struck those last two paragraphs, or even changed the very last paragraph, that if somebody believes they've been subjected to any type of discrimination that conflicts with the diversity policy, that they can seek assistance from Sean or the executive director of the
That's
agency
exactly what I-
or the president of the agency. Did I
Right.
No, no,
interpret
I just wrote-
exactly
I
what
wrote
you were?
Exactly that down, yeah.
So if you struck that second to last paragraph, which deals with discipline, and changed the last paragraph to say, hey, Andy, you feel as though somebody discriminated against you because of your religious beliefs. You can file a complaint to Sean, to Bob, and it can be investigated. I mean, it might be something that we don't want to have a committee. You would hire legal counsel.
I think this is more pointed at the person coming in the door.
Oh, yeah.
For us. You know, hey, we
Absolutely.
don't like the guy's hair color or anything about him. We're not gonna, we're not gonna act on his application, and we're gonna act against him. Or her, or whoever.
And it has happened in the town of Hamburg where projects or sales of property or what have you have come before people of color. And the projects have been struck down.
By all means, we do not want that. So that should be based off the project and the qualifications of the project, not the person submitting the project, or whatever they may be.
The original sale of the Woodlawn School is one of the biggest examples of such. When people then sued because they didn't like the people who were buying the property. And now it's in a state of disrepair.
Well, even with the Amazon project, but a lot of people that just didn't like Amazon, for the fact they didn't like Amazon, we hopefully took a broader look at that issue and made a decision based on how much, without discriminating against a particular, company.
So may I make, we haven't had a
So-
motion to table, we're still on discussion, but if I may
Yeah.
make a motion to amend the resolution to strike the
The second to
second
last
last
paragraph.
paragraph. And Cam, you wrote down,
And to
I
to
had-
edit the last paragraph to remove a supervisor or an HR representative and replace it with
the
the
executive.
executive director or board president.
Okay,
We need to expand that from employees and members to the
Applicants,
general public.
Yeah.
right, applicants.
Applicants, anyone that comes before the
Yep.
board.
Yep,
so where it says employee or member, we will say applicant, employee.
no,
or
no,
member.
no, employees and members who believe,
Okay,
employees, members, or applicants who believe.
okay.
And then we strike any employee, blah, blah, blah. I mean, if there's an issue, we'll deal with it at that time.
Mhm. So the last sentence, just to clarify, employees, members, or applicants who believe they have been subjected to any kind of discrimination that conflicts with this diversity policy and initiatives should seek assistance from the agency executive director or board president.
Sean, should we add in potential applicants as well? In
Um,
case someone comes before
yeah.
the board
Sure.
as a concept before they make formal application?
So agency members, I'm sorry, so employees, members, potential applicants or applicants. All in favor?
On the motion to amend.
On the motion to amend.
I'll second that. Give a second.
So Janet and then Cam?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Now you need to vote on the amended
Now,
policy.
so moved, to approve the amended Industrial Development Agency Diversity and Inclusion Policy.
So moved.
Janet,
Second.
Andy, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. What I will do for Mr. Reinhardt, I'm gonna move to the Ford resolution that has been presented. And this is under unfinished business. So just let me check off a couple of things here. Lose my place. As you know, Ford has submitted an application for incentives and sales tax exemption with the Hamburg Industrial Development Agency for the plant in Hamburg, New York. And as we further have been working with the applicant, and I'll introduce Mr. Reinhardt, there's been some, I think, challenges in the industry and in the marketplace as a whole that have posed forward with some, I think some unforeseen potential circumstances that will make it difficult to maintain current employment at the plant. So Tony, I'm going to introduce you, please. If you could state your title and just largely you can talk to this as it's your internal business and kind of risk analysis that we've been really trying to struggle through. And I appreciate your help with this. But if you could just join us and kind of explain your circumstances at the plant.
Thank you. Good morning. Can everybody hear me okay?
Morning.
Yes.
Yeah, Tony Reinhardt. I'm the Director of State Relations for Ford Motor Company. And first, let me offer our empathy, our solace, our consolation on the very unfortunate and heinous event of the weekend. It resonated through our operations a little more than maybe some others, in that one of the victims was the better half of one of our retired electricians. And so obviously we had to take some internal actions, grief counselors, et cetera, on board as the employees came back to work Sunday night and Monday. But as I told Sean yesterday, we also want to be a part of, the community and how they, deal with this going forward. We did announce yesterday some fairly significant support for the Buffalo Together Response Fund, but also offer up, as I did to Sean yesterday, if there's other actions, activities that any of you all are a part of, or please keep us in mind. We want to be a part of the going forward to help the community respond, and more importantly, get through this. So our condolences and to all the families, et cetera. As far as this conversation, yeah, I think that there's a little bit of confusion on our part in the system, and we probably created that. And first of all, I want to say we appreciate the previous support and the ongoing continued support of this group. It's very important to us, the relationship we've had historically, and want to maintain that. I think when we first came to Sean with this conversation, this go round, we were trying to be upfront, maybe as open and transparent as possible, in that we may have a short-term investment that we're going to do that would necessitate maybe a small reduction in the number of employees on site. They would not be, be a temporary layoff for us, potentially, those type of things, which is kind of important because the benefit would be very helpful in this investment. But what it did, it puts us in a situation with this conversation, with this program, in terms of the survey we submitted, not wanting to be in a position where we knowingly submitted a number that we might be in violation temporarily. And so we looked for a solution. So I think maybe the mistake we made was maybe looking at it more as, what is a number that would more than fit the business model to cover the incentive, as opposed to the technical legal responsibilities of the program in terms of the retention. And so that's why the survey we submitted was where it was at, after some conversation with Sean and trying to understand the model that you use to generate that benefit. And so the conversation now with the resolution you have in front of you is, because originally it said job creation, which we were never about that, it was about retention, and we appreciate that conversation. But now it also says, it talks about the survey, which the survey, actually, we're not opposed to the numbers in the survey. Maybe the number's not right, but we're not opposed to that. And so I think the dilemma though is, right, is we didn't want to infer that there was any permanent reduction in the head count. But when, I guess the legalities, the technical side of the program doesn't allow for the number to be reduced. And we don't look at it reduced in terms of the commitment. We were looking at maybe more so the clawback or something, because so we wouldn't knowingly sign a document, and you all knowingly sign a document that maybe in the short term there could be, we could be in non-compliance with it. And so that's kind of the dilemma, I think. Is that accurate, Sean, based on your understanding of our conversations? And so I think, we're at a place where we totally understand if the legalities of the program or the technical aspects of the program don't allow for that flexibility, then we accept that. But just want to make sure everybody understood. It wasn't our intention to say we believe we were looking for any kind of a permanent reduction, right? We were just trying to get past this initial investment and an opportunity there and make sure we were being straightforward, open and honest with somebody. Said we don't want to be in violation of the agreement we were about to sign. So that's our conversation. We're glad to answer a question.
What's temporary? A couple months, a year?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
What's temporary?
Just during the investment time frame. So it might be, I don't have exact numbers yet, but maybe 6 months to a year as we do the construction work and the refurbishing, some areas.
So this
And realize when we do that, a temporary layoff for us, technically, we supplement their unemployment, et cetera, so we can make sure they're there. So when we get ready to bring them back on board, so it's not like it's a permanent layoff for us. Anything, I'm not saying that's what we're doing, because I'm not making any announcement here, but I'm just saying if we get to that space, it's just a temporary, what we call a temporary, right? It's not a permanent.
So and I think this is where, the agency is struggling, and I think Ford too. So our recapture policy is rather vague, because it's designed that way to be flexible with businesses. We're here to support business. So there are sometimes circumstances where, a pandemic where we've had employment drop and we've had to flex with these businesses and not invoke a specific recapture policy. So I think that policy is designed so that we can allow for some unforeseen circumstances and generally support businesses and not be punitive, where it is not necessarily the business's fault. So with that, I think Ford is unsure in proceeding with the sales tax arrangement, because if this employment should drop at a period of time, they are unsure from a risk analysis standpoint, as to what level of impact a recapture will be levied by the Hamburg IDA. We were of the understanding that the jobs would be, back at the previous level. So, I just want to identify that, if that is, I think the board understood that within this 5-year time frame, and I appreciate, the company being transparent, that employment would take a dip for some retooling purposes and investment purposes, but then, regained to the current level. And I what I'm gathering at this point is you're unsure at this point, as to, what the staffing levels will need to be 5 years out.
Well, I don't know if anybody knows whether staffing levels are going to be 5 years out. We have no intention of not returning back at this point in time to the levels that we're at. It's just that the legal document that came in, right, didn't allow for any period of time in the 5-year period to have a reduction at the plant, which puts us in a position, right, from at least our lawyers looking at it and your lawyers looking at it. And I understand, that's the situation we just find ourselves in that technically there would be a short period of time that we could be in violation of the agreement, and not knowing how that would, be how you all would look at that, right, creates a risk that we don't, it's Ford Motor Company. We're very straightforward up front, try to be as transparent as possible. we don't want to knowingly mislead anybody or make anybody believe, saying that we're, not being straightforward about it, right? I would just say that, right now, there is no intention for this to be a permanent situation. But I can't tell you anybody where we're going to be in 5 years, you know what I'm saying? Nobody knows where that's at, right?
So and he won't be able to hear me.
I can hear you.
Currently, what lines are you supporting? So vehicles I mean, I know you were doing parts for the Edge. In the past, I think might have been the F-150. The lines that you're going to be retooling, what vehicles are those going to support?
That's not a public announcement at this point in time. I can't say that, right?
Okay, so then I'll just do the deep dive and ask the question. If you do not retool this plant, what are the chances that it will remain intact in the next 5 to 10 years?
I can't predict that, but retooling is an important part of the process to ensure that whatever we're doing there is attached to the product that we're, putting into the marketplace, right?
So if you stay stagnant,
Well, in our industry, as much change as we're
regularly,
going
I'm
as much
sorry.
change we're going through in our industry right now, stagnant is never a good thing, no matter where you're at.
And retooling is necessary to keep it busy.
Retooling is never a bad thing long term. It may be unfortunate in a short term, right? Because we got to get past that, but it's never a bad thing, because that's an investment for future products.
So, in my humble opinion, and I understand our responsibility, I also understand Ford is responsible and has to turn a profit or their stockholders get angry. The auto industry in and of itself is undergoing a huge change right now with all the climate control measures and switching to electronic vehicles and all this craziness. I mean, there's gonna be a huge change throughout the nation. And Ford has for the past 60 years been a huge part of this community. And I myself want to see Ford in this community. I don't want families losing their jobs. Listen, I don't have anybody who works at Ford right now, but I grew up in a Ford family. My dad worked there. I've seen the ebb and flow of that plant. And I know we have an obligation, but maybe this is something before we quickly rescind a resolution. I don't know if there's a way that we can help. I want Ford to stay here. I don't want to lose our Ford stamping plant. And I have to be honest, I am in great fear of that with all the changes in the auto industry and just where different vehicles are being made and what our plant is supporting. If they don't retool, they're not going to be here.
Well, I just wanted to thank the gentleman for clarifying a lot of that stuff. And so I remember when this resolution came before us, initially took me back about the conversations that was happening. I was chair then. And I don't know what's conversation that happened now at the executive committee and Ford, but I would ask, is there a way that we could frame this as any temporary job loss below the numbers for a certain amount of time? It would not be subject to recapture on a project by project basis.
I can't find anything in state law that supports our ability to do that. Under our law changed in 2018, requiring the project and agent agreement and requiring each applicant to commit to that number of jobs. And if they don't do it, for whatever reason, then the agency has to start the recapture proceeding. There are provisions in your recapture policy that allow you to consider special extenuating circumstances.
And what would that qualify? Like, what would we have to do to qualify for those extenuating
It would have to,
circumstances?
market issues, technology issues. Our policy is intentionally vague on that to allow you to deal with the situation. So you're not locked into doing something that's gonna hurt the company. But Ford was concerned with that because, here's the board today, but next year it could be a different board.
I mean, isn't this a technology issue that we're really dealing with?
And a market
Putting in new
issue.
technology to keep themselves competitive and
Right.
keep this plant competitive.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure they've retooled over the life of this agreement that's been on for how many years? It's just a,
Yeah, and it's this.
But with the
They've
last
retooled in the
closings, they
past.
didn't have to do the project and agent agreement because the law changed after their last
That's it,
closing
we're
with
not
the IDA.
impacted by this law in the
So-
last arrangement.
New York State,
And I will say, as the application was presented, from Ford, we did look at an economic analysis at, they predicted, I think it was 225 or 250 jobs. And we looked at because these are such high paying jobs and there is so much fringe involved, that even at the, kind of the dip in employment as the plant went through its changes, there was still overall economic benefit. So we did calculate, an analysis, and there is overall economic benefit, but the roadblock we reached is this retention. So I don't, it's almost our relief and Ford's relief to continue this would be state law, right, Jennifer?
Right.
To provide us with this. I think that if approved, there's agency exposure. If the agency, approves this with knowing that, and Ford still, I think if Ford's looking to mitigate the exposure, and we want to mitigate the exposure, and I only think the way to do that is within state law. I mean, we could certainly contact the lawmakers to.
Right, I mean, I could reach out to the ABO for some guidance, but I'm pretty sure based upon their past responses that they're going to say follow the law.
Right, but I guess I'm interpreting the law means we have discretion.
Right.
Correct, under the recapture policy, you do have discretion.
So the concern is that although this board seems to be of a sentiment that maybe will use that discretion here,
Right,
that Ford would like that memorialized such that subsequent boards can't change their mind. Is that really
right,
what we're talking
and
about?
there's no way for you to bind future boards.
Right.
Understood.
That's pretty standard across the entire spectrum of government. You can't find the town board or the assessment department to,
Right.
do something for a future, future board
Right.
assessor.
so I,
So
sorry,
I think the intent here though is we don't want to be punitive because of a short-term situation. I mean, it makes no sense. They would be retooling as a normal part of business.
Absolutely, there's just nothing in state law that addresses that situation. The state law says that when you commit to the number of employees or job retention, that they have to stick with that. Subject to the recapture policy, which there is your ability to reevaluate.
Help me out someone here, because in the past, the town has set up economic zones that had the ability in that zone to not pay sales tax, to not pay different things. This is, gosh, going back some time ago. Do you remember?
Yeah, that's it, right, or like economic zones in different towns.
They had economic zones in different parts of town that needed help to have development. So they offered like this kind of broad exemption to certain areas for business development. And I mean, I've been around a while. There's been things that have happened between the town and the county and not the IDA for Ford in the past. I mean, when Blaisdell moved its sewage treatment operations to Erie County, one of the big considerations was we were treating Ford's waste and their wastewater. It was more economically feasible for Ford to pay the county to treat its waste than the Blaisdell rates. I mean, that was all part of our negotiations. But we had these sales tax zones where if people were improving their properties, anything that was purchased, they were exempt from sales tax.
Enhancement zone.
Enhancement zone.
That would be done by the town board.
But, you know, maybe we can't do something here, but
What is
I
the
don't know.
minimum? I'm sorry, Deanna, I thought we were done.
no, I'm good. I'm concerned for this plan.
Well, it just boggles my mind that we create laws that would maybe make it harder for a union business to operate in New York State when we say that we're a labor-friendly state. I just don't understand it, but that's neither here nor there. What is the minimum number of jobs to be economically sound for us to approve any kind of resolution?
Well, on the question of retention, I think it was like 970 jobs.
That's what we needed to have at that plant to approve any sales.
That's what was that was an employment number in their application. So that's what the board approved originally.
So what, in going forward, let's say this resolution that we approve, we rescind it, what if they could reapply?
Well, they could always submit an amended application. for
What
the
would
board.
that number of jobs be, Jennifer? Would you, anybody know?
What's what are the actual year timeframe are we looking at for the temporary decrease in jobs at the plant? Are we looking at like from June of this year to June of next year? I'm just thinking maybe we can break the resolution into a couple of years.
Well, the problem is once we
Personnel.
close, they have to do the Paris reporting to the state, and that is the report, which is done every winter, that goes to the state that verifies their employment numbers.
Right, but could we put together a resolution that gives them some economic benefit between now and then and a reduced number, and then they come back to us like a year from now and we just
Like do it in stages.
do it in stages?
I can look into that.
What is I just a shot in the dark. If an employee is laid off, are they still deemed employed by the company? No, okay.
No, what we do in that case is, what we call temporary layoff, right? They will be laid off, but then we supplement their unemployment. So they're getting largely their same benefit, right? Because the value to us there is to make sure that they're not going somewhere else, because, right, we've invested a lot in those employees in terms of their time there, their training, everything else. We don't want to lose them, right? So we supplement. That's the difference between us when we talk about a temporary layoff versus a permanent layoff, right?
So are those that class of employees reported on the New York 45 form, which is what you use to generate the numbers to report to the IDA?
I'll have to double check that, but I don't think so, because it's a little bit different because they're not technically on the payroll at that point in time, right? But the conversation that was brought up by one of the members about maybe doing this in phases intrigues me a little bit. So maybe that's a possibility if that's legally possible.
I would like to look into that.
Yeah, again, all we want to be is transparent, open with you, with this group, right? You've been very good to us historically, and we just don't want to put anybody in a bind where, you know what I'm saying? And the difference is the law change that took place. The law that took place a couple of years ago. So we appreciate all this conversation.
So why don't we not close the door today? Give Jennifer time
And
to do a little bit of investigation. and revisit this next month or the month after. Don't
Absolutely.
even put a time frame on it. If it takes her 3 months
Absolutely.
to find out, I don't want to shut the door.
And no, I
agree.
appreciate that, and I'm sure Mr. Reinhardt appreciates that, and all the employees of the plan.
Because maybe they can submit a revised application with stages outlined.
So if you can look into that New York 45 question, in addition to that, would you be okay if, if I reach out to the town regarding the enhancement areas or seek out other avenues where the sales tax relief may be granted beyond the IDA? Okay,
Can we maybe look at this too as not
Because that would be more permanent.
being active to the point of to prevent closing? Let's be proactive and how can we make this plan be successful and help it be successful? It's good jobs, it's good for the community, and it's forward. It's a good product. That'd be my,
That's what I
instead of, let's change our attitude on it. Let's not look at it saying, let's save it from being potentially closed. What can we do to help them succeed
And grow.
legally and grow for the benefit of the community?
What was the amount of sales tax savings that we were looking at?
I want to say, I don't know if you recall, Tony, specifically, I want to say around 2.3 million over 5 years. So, and again, the economic, the other recommendation that I put forth to the board is that we meet with our state representatives, at least in the district of the plan, and provide the economic analysis. Maybe, not only myself, but some of our board members who are UAW members, could join me in those meetings, because at its minimum level, the economic benefit far outweighs the incentive in sales tax to, promote and help this plan to grow, and potentially, other incentives beyond the sales tax that we're talking about.
I'm just thinking, we did it in stages. We could, knowing that what their scheduled purchase was, that sales tax benefit, parse out the sales tax benefit, the 2.5 million, maybe they need 2 million upfront, this year, and 0.5 million next year or so, whatever. I mean, come up with some concept like that possibly.
Adding more work to your plate, Jennifer.
That's okay. This is a very valuable project.
Okay, well, thank you, Tony. I appreciate
Thank
you
you.
joining us today. I think this was very
Communication
helpful.
between you two, just what's happening with you and Mr.
Yeah, I mean, what I could
I think we
do
need to be,
is, we'll, excuse me, have a motion we'll look at tabling this resolution today, and then potentially, Tony, I'll connect with you, and maybe we can reconvey with the executive committee and yourself. It seems like each of us, between Jennifer, yourself, and I, have some action items, and then maybe we can report back to the executive committee just to kind of report and put heads together, to see how we can potentially, work something out that will be overall supportive of the project.
We greatly appreciate the conversation. So yeah, we're here to, try to work with you every which way we can.
Thank you, Tony. Sound good?
perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, John.
Okay, motion to table the resolution of the Town of Hamburg Industrial Development Agency on Ford Motor Company.
So move.
Thank you, Andy. Second, was that you, Mr. Hutchinson? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Governance. Doesn't require any action, but I just wanted to communicate to the board, the governance committee met. We did review the IDA summary results, or the survey summary, which was presented in your board packet. Overall, the committee felt the results were positive, and we agreed on some activities to drive future positive results in 2022. Some of the areas of improvement, I think I'll point to just to keep moving. Some of the larger items, Board members comprehend their role in fiduciary responsibilities and hold themselves and each other to these principles. We've developed some action items along that question. We will annually distribute the IDA training package that Jennifer has drafted and provided. We'll get that out annually. We will annually provide information on attending the ABO training, the mandatory board training. So you are required to do this training as you join the board. And then you have met the minimum requirement, but if you would like to attend it more frequently, if you feel like you need a brush up, you can do that. We can provide information and support for members who would like to attend the New York Economic Development Council, the Basic Economic Development course. So there is a training course that would involve probably 8 hours of your time, but you're welcome to do that and the agency would support it. And then we do have a link sheet that we've provided to some helpful resources for IDA board members. There was a question to set clear and measurable performance goals for the authority that contributes to accomplishing this mission. We've looked to identify our annual budget for our financial goals. And then the strategic planning meetings that we hold, we would refer back to those minutes to restate the agency objectives for economic development. The authority programs, financial statements, reporting requirements, and other transactions. I'll talk to this in a little bit, but a new initiative was to have the governance committee review the Paris report. So that committee specifically will go through that report in detail. The director should point out shortfalls in that report and basically exposure that the agency may have for the authority budget office or the state controller's office or auditing arms, and communicate those to the governance committee. So in our June meeting, we'll roll out our responses to the board. The last item is covered on our agenda. It's the insurance. The board has identified areas of risk to the authority and works with management to implement risk mitigation strategies before problems occur. So we are looking to, overall, I feel, and the committee feels that it was positive, but we look to maintain or enhance that standing as we move forward. The reports in advance of our June meeting can be found at abo.ny.gov. So these are reports for all IDAs. If they're doing what they're mandated to do, these reports are out there 90 days after the calendar year. You will find ours out there. In addition to that, we put our agency report specifically for the Hamburg IDA as required on our IDA website. So on hamburgida.com, those reports are out there.
So the Paris report.
The Paris
is on our website.
Is on our website. So ours specifically, but if you'd like to look up any IDA or public authority, it is on the, well, it should be on the ABO website. So we are looking into 6 projects specifically that are receiving abatement that have fallen short of their employment targets. So we've reached out to these companies for explanation, and then we'll report back with those findings at our next governance committee meeting and then roll them out to the full board in June. So again,
just to be clear, we're obligated to act on those projects or otherwise explain the differences between their commitment and their reality.
It should be reviewed and documented, absolutely.
Which isn't to say we have to rescind the project or anything.
No,
We just have
but you
to.
need to look at it
document
and
thanks. So that's the update on that. And I think that was a part of exposure that we're, closing the loop on and just operating in within our requirements. The next item, as you know, we've been short a board member for some time now. I think that the town board, would benefit from some guidance. The Hamburg Town Board, which designates, the IDA board members, I think would benefit from some guidance. So, the chair had talked to, and I'm certainly in support of, just somewhat in lieu of a job description, for this volunteer position, if we can provide some either specific people, or more generally, more broadly, types of people, qualities, experience, knowledge, that may help provide some guidance to the town board to fill this role. Does that make sense?
Would I be able to point the town board to our newly included diversity and inclusion policy, which says the collective sum of the individual differences, life experiences, knowledge, incentiveness, innovation, self-expression, unique capabilities, and talent of our employees and members, that we are going to embrace and encourage our employees and members, regardless of age, color, disability, ethnicity, family, marital status, gender identity or expression, language, national origin, physical and mental ability, political affiliation, race, religion, sexual orientation, social economic status, veteran status, and other characteristics that make our employees and memberships unique and balanced.
It's like a great opportunity for the town board.
I would love if they took it.
So, and that's certainly a recommendation. I mean, that's something that I think we feel, and, in advance of that, I talked to, the diversity of experiences and representation and backgrounds that make this board what it is today. But obviously we struggle, we have two members, Wentz has reached out to me, he's been engaged, unfortunately, he doesn't get paid here, and he has a family.
None of
So
us do.
his work schedule, is simply not, permitting him to attend today. Mr. Reynolds, the same. So, we would, we kind of need that ninth member on here for bench strength, I guess, so to speak. So, it's tough. I appreciate all you coming and getting through these matters and providing the forum. But I'd like to.
I think if somebody has someone of interest, if someone who might add to our board, to maybe bring the name to you. I mean, I literally just texted two people who are business. One's an independently owned business owner who has been very successful. And the other one works on a regional level, not in our county, but they live in our town, and I mean, you gotta have somebody in your mind who could really bring a great perspective to this board.
And I think that's what we're looking for.
Yeah,
We've got a pretty diverse group. I mean, we have government represent the school boards, we do have some independent business, but what are we lacking here that we could use on this? What kind of perspective, I'll say, or background are we lacking? That may be good to put on the board. You've got a pretty good perspective from, I'd say, the union side of things.
Oh, yeah.
In the general, I mean, we need that. We learn a lot from each other. We really do.
I literally, the one person, and I say nationally, they work internationally. I mean, they do have some travel obligations, but they're pitching Western New York all over. More on a travel side and but.
Travel is the
Part-
huge part of
yeah.
our economy.
So I'll wait for a text back and I'll let you know.
Okay,
Got a couple of days. We'll get back to you.
okay. Perfect. That's, in lieu of in lieu of trying to craft, a type, and maybe we don't want to craft a type, if you have recommendations, we can
Yeah.
at least pass them along to the town board. So, Yeah, I don't, I've had communications with the supervisors, we've offered, people, a one person, and I don't think the town felt that they were a fit. So, we can keep plugging along, and suggesting names.
And the less political, the better.
Agreed. I certainly agree, from other IDAs,
I actually said it out loud.
so.
Let's see what UAW many people are.
Well, and whether, I don't even, I'll back off of that, is if it's balanced, and I think we have good balance. And I think
We have great
maintain that
balance.
So I think maybe political does, I think political has a role, but I think if a board is divided and, I've seen, you can watch any IDA meeting you want generally. But projects do not move forward when a board is divided politically. And the business is separate.
Well,
And I think you understand who your clients are. Your clients, our clients, are people investing in this community. Those are the people you work for. You don't work for a political party. You work for the investors in this community.
well, just today, we had some issues that we had to discuss. That brainstorming on the fly brought one to resolution and another, instead of acting boom to rescind, let's investigate, let's examine, let's take some more time. Nobody here is, just flying off and cutting stuff down without discussion.
And this way it should be.
Absolutely. Doesn't always happen in other places.
So yeah, please send me those names. I'll move them
I'm gonna
forward.
send you the name because I just responded.
E1 Insurance. We've provided the 30-day notice to E1. And so this is, the sales tax project has closed. So that project is open and closed.
Thank you for your work.
There is
Jennifer.
a current pilot on the first expansion, and there's 3 years remaining on that pilot. We're requesting that Billy Lee LLC terminate the leaseback arrangement, which would effectively end that pilot, and then they will not be required to meet the insurance requirements. So we're gonna begin the leaseback termination process with them, and that will close the loop on that. And then when that is complete, the property would be reconveyed, and and then all the matters with E1 Billy Lee LLC should be resolved at this point for the board. So I appreciate your assistance in getting through that. It's been a long road. Next item, agency directors and officers insurance. We've had a lot of work with our representative in seeking out a suitable policy that provides you with the coverage that we would seek, that basically does not have the exclusions that we've talked about. So this would be directors and officers insurance with limits to the 1 million mark. This would also have employer, employment practices liability insurance, which the agency did have, some matters that this would have benefited in the past. So that coverage would also be in the amount of $1 million. And the annual policy premium would be $1,260. So this is, essentially the D&O insurance plus the employment practices, and it's $10 over, what we had initially budgeted of $1,250. So I have a resolution that the Hamburg Industrial Development Agency authorizes the executive director to execute a directors and officers and employment practices liability insurance policy with travelers insurance in the amount to not to exceed $1,260 annually.
So moved.
So moved. Thank you, Janet.
Second.
Thank you, Andy. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. IDA sexual harassment training, please send confirmation to Mary. I think we have a couple people out there still.
Am I on that hit list here? I thought I had it
Is
confirmed.
Amy on that? Janet?
I'm on that list, I'll send.
Am I, Mary?
I don't remember if you are.
If you could
I
email
am.
me, if you, I thought I had it covered through my,
Mary's just being nice. He is probably out there.
if I gotta do it, I'll do it.
Please remember, if you've done it through other employment, you can share that attendance certificate with Mary and that covers it. You do not have to do it for each
It's a 12-month period, right? Or is it start on the IGA,
calendar year.
the calendar year? Okay. Yeah, I gotta do it.
All right, thank you. Privilege of the floor, there is no one in the gallery. So I guess no one's here to speak. Any call for executive session? Motion to adjourn the May 18th, 2022 IBA meeting at 8:52 a.m.
Second.
Thank you, Davis. Thank you, Cam. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Land development. Cam Paul.
Here.
Bob Hutchison. Jen McGregor Flyer.
Here?
Thomas Moses.
Here.
Andy Palmer.
Here.
David Pekulski.
Here.
And Bob and Wentz are absent. Motion to open the May 18th, 2022 Hamburg, New York Land Development Corporation Board of Directors meeting at 8:53 a.m.
So move.
Thank you. Second,
Second.
thank you, Janet. Motion to approve the meeting minutes from April 20th, 2022.
So moved.
Thank you, Janet.
Second.
Thank you, Tom. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Financial report covering Mr. Reynolds' absence. We've had some taxes and filing fees in the amount of $275. We've had interest income in the amount of $232.91, which our net income is negative $42.09. We are reporting total cash between savings, checking, and our certificate of deposit in the amount of $1,647,987.08. So moved.
So moved.
Thank you, Cam. Thank you, Andy, on the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Here. Director update, you know, it's a struggle. There's really nothing to report in land activity. The good news is, you know, that we're working with Walden, you know, we certainly do not own the land over there anymore, but they're becoming more active in, you know, working on the remaining acreage over there to develop, which is positive. Now that the construction project is complete with Amazon and the turnover is complete to them. However, in terms of the land corp looking to apply some of our funds to real estate investments in the area, I have not come across anything, you know, that would either make financial sense or just be a suitable investment that I would bring either to the committee or the full board at this time. So we'll continue to seek. Certainly, if you hear of anything, please bring it to my attention. I will certainly jump on it, but I'm very active, you know, with my colleagues in commercial real estate, and it's just a, you know, a difficult market, and there's no, at least there's underutilized parcels out there, but the, you know, the price, the purchase or the asking price is just not compatible with the market. So I don't see it as, you know, worthwhile to bring forward something that's not at least a, you know, something that where there's opportunity for us.
If somebody's got 10 or 15 minutes and wants to go on a little drive, really go over to that Lakeside Commerce. Walden has moved a lot of dirt, a lot of rocks out of there. They're getting those 2 parcels really ready to show. And what's happened over at Jameson and Batista is outstanding. I mean, they've doubled in size since they've been there. The additions that they've, Batista's is finished and Jameson is still working on theirs.
Pretty
It's
good.
crazy.
Where are those remaining parcels relative to the building that's there now?
They're in front on the road on Bayview
On
Road.
Bayview.
On Bayview Road.
And then there is another, like roughly 5-acre parcel, there's some wetlands that we had sold to Carwell,
Right.
and Carwell has been languishing. You know, I reach out to the owner on a regular basis and they say cost of construction, and, you know, I don't, you know, I don't know.
I don't
if
think
costs
prices are
ever
going
gonna
down, yeah,
subside. You know, interest rates are going up, the costs may level, but, you know, to say they're gonna decrease substantially, so unfortunately, you know, that one is languishing. It's a great corner, it's probably, the you know, one of the most prime sites at the park. But, you know, Walden has been very aggressive. Walden also has provided a lot of that fill. I think Martin Construction, Walden Development, the operating engineers have been doing a lot of Dixie site for their expansion over there. So Walden has, you know, beyond their investment in the plant over there, you know, they've gone to support the community in other ways, which is great. So we have, you know, they can't say enough good things about the developer and the working relationship that we have with them. So,
There's a lot of action on Jeffrey with the Penn Dixie building that's going in the new entranceway.
In Norfolk Southern too, they're starting over there. right?
Yeah,
Carbon
they're
activated.
carbon activated
So,
over there.
Yeah. I was by there.
I'm
They're
like-
not breaking land speed records, but
So, there is, I think it's in the transaction process, the 10-acre parcel that is owned by RPO Hill over there. I've noticed some surveying going on, so there may be some activity over there. We're working with like a truck terminal, but it's, you know, it's been confidential to this point, but you see activity over there. And Walden's aggressive, and also the market for industrial space is still very tight. So there's 2-3% vacancy. There's been speculative building by Uniland at the Renaissance Commerce Park in Lackawanna. So there's a lot of development just north of us. And, you know, and I would say it's certainly not out of the question that Walden would build a speculative 100,000 square foot office building at that site. I think they're just kind of, they had, that was a tremendous project for them, and I think a tremendous effort. So they're probably just trying to get a breath of air before they move forward.
hey, Sean, correct, there's more of a question for you with your experience in real estate, but if Chicago hasn't sold, I mean, you certainly probably get more now than what he bought it for.
Oh,
That's probably a good sign that he still plans to develop, you know, am I wrong?
Ideally, yes. Ideally, yes. And it's, you know, that our site, you know, through your support has the pre-permitted process still involved. That could go away. I try to use that as a, you know, more of a stick to get these investors to move on their, you know, to build, because at any point the town board could rescind that law. But it's still in place, and we look to use it and, you know, potentially apply that law. It certainly spurred development in the last few years there. I think it's a great, you know, it was developed by Wendell planners and architects, and I think it could be a great application if applied to other parts of it.
You know, if you do a little jaunt over to Jeffrey Boulevard and continue down Bayview to Lakeside Commerce, take a drive, if you go at night on a sunny night, take a drive through K-Tex parking lot. And you'll see KAV, which is Cries Athletic Ventures, has power volleyball leagues there that attract hundreds of people
That's cool.
on like daily. during the summer.
I've never heard.
And if you remember, they had proposed to the town of Hamburg to put a somewhat permanent structure there to be able to run power volleyball year round, and it got shot down by the town. It's wild. the
There
amount
there was
of-
gonna be a bar involved with that.
Well, they were gonna have a liquor license.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that's what was a clincher at that point. Which was
Trust me,
unfortunate.
there's liquor there, people bring coolers.
Oh, yeah.
Trust me, people bring coolers
Oh,
now,
I know, but
but it's amazing the number of cars pull in and out of there on a nightly basis.
Think of what we could do near a $1.4 billion stadium if we actually just don't buy ourselves.
Well, some, I hate to belabor it, but I remember going to a town board meeting many, many years ago when Penn Dixie originally was proposed, the Penn Dixie site. And may he rest in peace, a former rec director for the town of Hamburg. And it was not Tom Moses, remember, he was Village of Hamburg. But him saying, well, that's not recreation. Why should I give part of my recreation budget to help these people? You know what? One man's recreation isn't another's.
No.
I mean, hiking, going for fossils. Who would have thought kayaking would have been so big 25 years ago? Stand-up paddleboarding. I mean, people like passive recreation, and it's now turned into a world-class facility, or it will be, once they get their building done. So, we've gotta be,
outside the.
as our diversity policy says. You gotta be worldly, gotta be open-minded.
Is there any word on that Amazon plant that's gonna open?
No, it's interesting because I go by there and I think there was a huge rush for the developer and now it's turned over to Amazon and there's little activity over there. So certainly they have, they'll have to meet their employment requirements. It was, they wanted the plant, I think in March, April, so they could be online for this holiday season. So, I
think once they mobilize,
it'll be quick.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I think
once,
they know how to do this.
yeah, I mean, they've done it before, but you go from an outsider's perspective, you go by and there's, the lots empty for
Yeah,
the most part.
people are saying, what's the holdup? Are they
Yeah.
bailing out?
Well, no, they've gotta go, in. I mean, the exterior's done, but they've gotta go in, they
Wow,
gotta get
these-
their racks,
Their
they've gotta
rack,
get
yeah.
their
All
conveyors, their motors, their cranes, their,
Yeah, a lot to it.
It's probably having machines in there.
yeah.
They, like you said, they'll probably come in as an organized force with lots of tractor trailers and fit it out.
You know, the plan.
That's the understanding is that they'll be operational, for the, this holiday season. Okay, no privilege of the floor, no guests today, executive session. Motion to adjourn the May 18th Hamburg New York Land Development Corporation meeting at 9:05 a.m.
So
Thank you, Andy.
Second.
Thank you, Tom. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thanks, everyone. Next meeting, June 15th.
So Sean, I just sent you.
June.
You know Jamel? Jamel Perkins?
Oh, yeah. I talked to him through pitching.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh,
Is he-
Congratulations.
Is he doing
I
something?
invite you.
Or were you trying to?
No, not officially.
I have two
We were just
nephews
kinda
graduating
meeting.
from high
You
school.
know,
So he's
this year.
executive
It's
for
like,
Sodexo.
oh,
Okay.
One
He
one
does
is
also
living in
do Friday
Tokyo,
activities
just
around town.
He's like a musical,
Winner,
yeah.
visible by.
Well,
He's so funny.
Yeah.
I was curious.